So welcome in here on another episode of Rosey and Goldy. Seth Goldberg, Roosevelt Bouie with you here on twitch.tv/Rosey and Goldy. And happy to be back. Happy to be doing this again with you, Rosey. And we should let everybody know, of course, that you can always get in the chat over on the side of the screen if there's anything that you want to ask, if there's anything that you want to maybe see us talk about. Feel free to throw in those suggestions and we'll get rolling. But Rosey, how have you been? Before we get started, how have you been the last week? What's going on?
Hey, you know what? Everything's been good. I played in the golf tournament, shot the ball pretty well. A lot of fishing. I haven't broke a record yet. I went out fishing yesterday and had every country boy thinks he's the best weatherman in the history of the world. I got rained on yesterday, Seth. I came home looking like a wet rat, wet rat, and it was ice cold too. So, but other than that, the good thing is, it's good for my curls and makes my hair nice and curly.
There you go. There you go. You know, it's funny. You mentioned golf. I went out golfing. Well, I didn't go golfing. I haven't been actually golfing in years. I went to the driving range the other day. That was like a big step for me. I am not a good golfer at all. I didn't know you golfed, though.
Oh, yeah. I started golfing probably, it's maybe 15 years ago. And it's kind of funny because I played baseball and other things left-handed. Okay. I'm kind of ambidextrous. I'm kind of crossed up, so I'm left-hand dominant. So before I got ready to play golf, I went to Coach Bayham. I was like, listen, I want to start playing golf. You know, you have any advice? And he said, well, most of the courses are made for people to play right-handed. And he said, and golf is hard enough to play without having to come at everything from the opposite directions. I was like, makes sense to me. So I got started.
That's a good guy to go to. I mean, he was the golf coach back in the day. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never, it's not like I want to become like the greatest golfer of all time. I know what kind of time you got to put in to be a professional. And I put in just about enough so I can enjoy when I go out and play. Get a good shot there, hit that shot to make you want to come back. And okay. I don't get too bent out of shape when it doesn't go where it's supposed to.
All right. That's the way to do it. Last time I played golf, I got so frustrated, I quit on like the 15th green. I was playing with my dad and my brother, and I turned to them, and I was just like, that's it. I'm terrible at this. I'm never playing another round of golf again. Sure enough, I finished off the round. I have not played a round of golf since.
You got to go out there and get back on that horse. You can do it.
Maybe. Look, if the pandemic lasts too much longer, I might pick it up at some point. I might get back out there. But we want to talk a little sports as we have been the last couple of weeks. And let's start here. We want to get to some Syracuse basketball and to Marek Dolezaj and to some like real in the weeds like sports stuff because there's going to be some. We'll get to that in a moment. However, I wanted to start with something else with you, Rosey, and that is kind of what we've been seeing at schools around the country over the last week or so as people have started to get back on campuses. And, you know, you're seeing some of the southern schools where, you know, bars are packed and there are no masks being worn by any of the kids. And it's not totally unsurprising. You're seeing some places like Syracuse that have been handling it really well. And so far they've kept things under wraps and kept things under control. And then you have like UNC and Notre Dame, which have had some pretty big, massive outbreaks. And in the case of UNC, they are sending all the students home and they're doing online learning only because of how bad their outbreak is. And it's an interesting position to me to send the average student home but keep the football players on campus.
Yeah, I was trying to understand the whole concept. So it shows up. So there's like 130 kids that got sick or tested positive.
I think it might have even been more than that at UNC. Yeah,
more. That screams to me somebody did not do their job. I mean, if you look at Syracuse, everybody had to get screened. I was talking to Jesse Edwards, and I contacted him when he was leaving home, and he got over here, and he had to sit in his apartment for 14 days. And he was going crazy, but he did it because he wanted to go with the team. So I'm thinking, like, if those guys can do it, how? And he was tested regularly. So who is in charge of testing these students? Did they have any? That's why it's so important that you have somebody that goes around and makes sure everybody's following by a uniform code in order to make things safe.
It really is. It's so important. And we saw with Syracuse, they made freshmen come in and quarantine for 2 weeks. And I think that they're still in that process. You mentioned the testing and things like that. And they did all this testing on arrival. So you knew where kids stood when they got there. And I think that that's been kind of a problem as you look at UNC and maybe even Notre Dame to some extent where, they didn't do as thorough a job testing. But as far as sports go, and I think that this is the kind of the interesting aspect, and you look at Syracuse, the first football team they're supposed to go play is UNC, and that's, not even a month away at this point. But, how I look at this and I'll ask you, how do you keep the football players on campus while saying it's not safe for everybody else to be on campus and still act as if, hey, these guys don't bring the value. They're the average college student. On the other hand, because you don't want to compensate them in ways other than the scholarship.
Well, this is the one thing that I thought about. The general population of students, like, for instance, I'm at Syracuse University. I went to class, I went to practice, I studied, I went home. That was it. I had 2 jobs. I had playing basketball and going to school. So I used to look at, when I was in Lawrence, the guys were like, okay, we're going out drinking, we're going out to hang out, we're going out partying. And they did it like 4 or 5 days a week. So if a student athlete did that 4 or 5 days a week, he would leave a lung on the practice field. You can't physically do it. And then you have people watching you to make sure that, like we talked about before, your coach knows when something's not going right, and they'll pull you aside and say, hey, what's going on? You got the responsibility of your teammates, the man next to you. Hey, I could go out and have a great time and tie it on, but do I want to be that guy that brings something to this team that you can't get rid of like luggage? Do I want to be that player? And if I'm a freshman or a sophomore or junior, how's that going to impact my playing time after that? Because I've got to prove that I'm responsible. So there's a lot of stuff going on as a player on the team that the general population students doesn't have. Now, I can see Syracuse students want to be even more apt to do so because, we had that national championship just slip out of our fingers because last year. So want to get back out there on the court. It was right there. Get back on the court. We don't want to do anything. We got to get back to the, making that dome rock. So I can see them having ulterior motives.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. It's such a strange position to put yourself in, and yeah, it might be, the best case scenario for those college athletes might be not to be around anybody else. If they really want to play, if they really want to go on with their season and get their season done, the best thing for them might be to send everybody home. It's such a strange, weird position that everybody's been put in.
Yeah, it is, and then by the same token, you can. The schools that abide by what they're supposed to do and have, no cases, low cases, find a way to get those students back in there, get them back in there so they can follow their teams. I mean, it is possible to do it because we've seen the TBT, they did it. The NBA is doing it now. There are going to be hybrid ways that they can go about getting things back to normal. And we're treating it like it's nerve gas. Like you come in contact with it and you drop dead. You just got to be cleaner. You go out and keep your distance, wear your mask where need be, and follow the protocols. And then when you come back home, take a nice hot shower, wash your hands, gargle, put on that gel, and get out there and go have something to eat.
Yeah, be safe and responsible, right? It shouldn't be that hard to say this. I will say, I think I remember somebody who I was working with made this point, and it was such a good point. Because this was at the beginning, and nobody knew it was going to be 6 months of this whole stuff. But they were like, hey, when this coronavirus thing is over, can we still wash our hands? Like, can we still be clean people? Because that would be nice.
Yeah, the cool thing about it is, we start we're conscious of things that that we kind of forgotten about, like just touching money, just touching dollar bills passing from one hand to the other. Then you come in the car and you touch the steering wheel. So you're conscious of to start cleaning things that normally you would only do once every 6 months when you got your car detailed. So you're more conscious about those things than that, and that's good. But I think it's be conscientious, be smart, be cautious, but get moving. Don't stagnate.
Yeah, so moving forward a little bit, I'm curious your thoughts on this, and I wonder if the example I'm thinking of that you might have been involved in, if you'll think it's similar. But last week we were talking about the Big Ten, and were they going to play, were they not going to play, and it ended up like they announced it like 5 minutes after we wrapped up the show that they weren't going to play football. And in the week since, there's really been a lot of pressure, momentum, and a lot of players are really outspoken. A lot of players' parents are really outspoken, saying we want these kids to play, we want to play. In the case of some of the players, let's start here. I find it hard to believe that a player revolt is going to get the Big Ten to reverse their course, or a player-parent revolt is going to get the Big Ten to reverse their course. Do you see any way they're playing? There's no way they go back on this, right?
I think it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough, but I think it's going to do something very important. It's going to create a situation where we're more than likely going to end up with a players' association in college sports, because it's been brought to their attention. Now they're making a big noise now, and now the next group, they're going to say, like, you know what? They made this decision. It wasn't like the day of the pandemic that sent everybody home. It's something that somebody's sitting down at a table and discussing the pros and cons. Why aren't we there? And that makes sense. They're not asking for you. They're not asking you to give us a paycheck. We want you to hear what we think. We want to hear what your objections are, and possibly we can think about it. We can put something together so we all can be happy.
Now, so overall, that sounds like a great idea. I mean, like, I'm all for them having the voice and being in the room. I'm curious how realistic it is, because this is another one of those things that the NCAA, the conferences, the schools have seemingly been so against, especially over the last 10, 15-ish years, 20 years maybe, as it's gotten louder and kind of come more to the forefront. This has been something that they've seemingly been just so opposed to. I know Northwestern tried it a number of years ago, and it just went nowhere. But I think that if you could have player representatives in the room, maybe you can avoid a situation like what the Big Ten just had. You can get these players and the administrators all on the same page, and it would just make things work out better.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, they're not asking to fly the space shuttle. They're asking to be, we want to be in the building. We want to understand. I think it's about information, because at this point right now, I have no problem with doing what I'm supposed to do, but I have a problem with not knowing what that something I'm supposed to do is. I'm not going to hide under the bed, and I'm not going to run around naked out in the parking lot. But I need to know there's something positive, something good that you can do, and I want information that you can count on. So I don't, I don't like the fact that I started watching stuff about about wearing masks probably a month or so tentatively seriously before anybody else did, and I distinctly remember them saying that it doesn't do any good to wear a regular just to put a bandana or cover your mouth. It doesn't do anything. It's like catching golf balls. It's like trying to pick up a bunch of golf balls with a soccer net. You can put 500 golf balls in there. You got, I got them, and you lift it up. What happens? The holes are too big. So, I mean, don't tell me that 1 month, and then 1 month later, look me right in the face and say, you know what? You got to cover your mouth because it works. I'm like, okay, listen. There's an old saying, are you blowing smoke up my butt trying to tell me the room's on fire? I want good information, something that you can hold on to, that's dependable. I think that's what's making people a little crazy. They don't understand, what's they don't understand what they can depend on, what you can't depend on. But the one thing that I know for sure, being a Syracuse graduate and having spent time around Syracuse and their program, Coach Boeheim, it's either his way to a guy that told Rick Pitino to shut the heck up because he talks during his timeouts. I'm pretty sure he will not have a problem getting his point across on exactly what he'll put up with and what he won't put up with. So, and then you've got the staff there that they're excellent. Brad and everybody that works around those players and Ryan, they will. And the other thing is they love those guys down. They've known them for years. So I would feel so comfortable doing whatever they suggested.
Yeah, and when you're talking about a players' association, or I mentioned collaboration with the athletes and the administrators and the coaches and things like that, to Syracuse's credit, they have been doing that on the football side of things. The football players voiced their concerns about Liberty's testing protocols. They sat out practice for 2 days, and the athletic director John Wildhack reportedly had meetings with them and Dino Babers and the team, and they let those concerns be heard. And then a week later, they had similar concerns about their own testing, and again, they let those concerns be heard. Now, did they fix all of them? Only time will tell, right? I mean, we don't know until the next time we hear that the football team skips a practice. But at least there's that report and that feeling that, there's some kind of collaboration and some kind of willingness to work with the other side, even though there's no real true obligation to, as there would be with a players association.
That kind of reminds me of when I was growing up. My mother, all 5'3.5" or 110 pounds, of me walking in there thinking that telling her what I think, and her smiling and listening to me. But in the end, she's going to make the decision on what's best. So, these college students, they come here, their parents are at home. Their parents turn them over to a coach that they feel will look out for their best interests. And a lot of times just to have somebody understand that you're having these thoughts, and you can see how those thoughts affect you. Some of these guys might go out there and they know they're not being heard, and they're having questions, and it might affect the way that they actually play the game of football. And now you've already talked to the coaches about it, and they can say, "Hey, listen, I can see that this is worrying you." A classic example for me was. Coach Boeheim came to my house, said, "Hey, you are a student athlete. Student first, athlete second." And it was just before the playoffs, just before going to the NCAA tournament. I came in, I was like, "Coach, hey, I need to put some more time in to study, because when I've studied enough, I can play basketball. I can't separate the two. If I'm worried about something, I take it onto the court with me." He looked at me and he goes, "See you tomorrow." I went there, got my work done, was successful. I came back and I was going gangbusters because I had no worries. So it's important for coaches to listen to these players, at least to understand what they're going through, so that they can make decisions that will help that player or help the players.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that certainly in a time now where there's so much uncertainty, so many questions, it only makes more sense to listen to these concerns and to talk with them and talk through some of those concerns. I did mention at the top, Rosey, we want to talk like some real sports and some stuff that hopefully we're going to be seeing soon. And you brought up Marek Dolezaj, and there was an article written about him by Matthew Gutierrez of The Athletic, and it was basically like how can Syracuse maximize Marek Dolezaj's talent his senior year, because we've seen glimpses, we've seen flashes, we've seen different things over his first 3 years at Syracuse where he can be a really good scorer, he can be a facilitator, he's a good defender, he can do a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. So I will ask you the question that the headline asks: how does Syracuse maximize his talent this year, his last year in the program?
First of all, Coach Boeheim, you're going to do whatever you want, so that you know best, and he will do what Syracuse needs, because as Dale Shackelford told me when I walked through the door, He said, Roosevelt, Bouie, no one player is bigger than Syracuse basketball team. So we do what we can to make the team the best that we can. But what I've seen, see, I don't know what they're planning, fitting the new guys in or whatever, what they're going to be doing. But what I've noticed about Marek is, people said he played so good the first year, then the second year he was so-so. I was like, he wasn't. He played the 3-4 the first year. Then he came back and he spent a lot of time playing the center. It's a big difference when there's 2 feet between the man playing you or he's inside your jersey. So it's like you got a guy hanging on you, you're carrying around the whole time. So it changes your whole concept of basketball. But never said a word, rolled his sleeves up, he went out there and he did it. He had successful games doing both. When you play against big guys all the time, you've got to focus on beating them at what you're good at. You're not going to overpower them, so you outquick them. Or you just learn how to avoid the things that they do well and do the things that you do well. Now, getting to this year, we saw some incredible play by Marek. He puts the ball on the floor, and he's 2/3. He takes like 3 steps. He's almost to the basket, and everybody goes like, "Oh my gosh, he's dribbling!" They run up at him. He does a spin move. You got to remember that 6'10" body. His crossover covers. He starts on 14 feet over there, and he finishes on 14 feet over here. So you do that crossover. You cover a lot of space. Number one. And number two, while he's covering space, when he crosses over and he leaves someone else has to step up. He's got his head up. He sees him coming. He can dish the ball off. He can stop. He can take the shot. Or a lot of times what happens, he just hesitates, and they go like, the guy back on defense goes, is this a mirage? He can't be like coming down the court dribbling the ball. They're like, he is. And by that time, Marek's like this high over the rim. He's dunking it. And he does it. And it's not like he looks like he's about to do it. He looks like he's just running up the floor. And the next thing you know, it's like, right. Oh, and he dunks. So
and he just lands a hammer on you. Yeah.
He lands a hammer. And then somebody steps up and goes around him. It's a little guy. He just reaches over him, lays it in the basket. He's got that. When I look at him, I see your classic European 3. Like when Wendell Alexis played 4 when he was in college, under the basket, he pushed, he shoved, he got the ball out, he ran the floor well. Wendell Alexis went to Europe and was a phenomenal player, won all kind of championships because at 6'9", 6'9.5", long arms, he shot the ball well, he dribbled the ball well, he rebounded the ball well, he could step in and play the center if there's a rotation. He was one of those guys, and then if you put a 4 or 5 on him, instead of the defense waiting for you underneath the basket, you just stop at the 3-point line, you stop at the foul line. That's your classic Tony Kukoc. Tony Kukoc, when we played against them, he played for Benetton. He was their point guard. Now, everybody tells you he's like 6'10". Tony Kukoc is damn near 7 feet tall. He would bring the ball up. Tony Kukoc had 6 points. I remember watching his score. He had 6 points with like 5 minutes left and a half, and he goes in with 15 because he dishes the ball out. He stops, he passes, and then when everybody's lulled asleep, you see Tony Kukoc gets like 3 dunks, a 3-pointer, a long 2-pointer, and you're like, Tony Kukoc, 15 points. He just had 6 points a second ago.
Right. He's
just
got
those same capabilities.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up Tony Kukoc and that kind of a player. I was watching the NBA yesterday, the NBA playoffs, and seeing the guys, and I'm not saying that Marek Dolezaj is these guys, but the European guys who have come over recently, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, they have they've all got like very similar skill sets in that they're big, but they're playmakers, they can shoot. And it just seems that Marek fits right into that mold of like the modern European player where, yeah, he might be almost 7 feet tall. He might be a big, but he's a really good ball handler and very easily could be a point guard, if you needed him to slide into that role.
Yeah. It's funny. I come here and I watch it. I played in Europe. I lived there 16 years. I played there 13, 14 years. I knew that there were players like Tony Kukoc and everybody else 4 years because I played against them for years. As soon as you go to play internationally, you start seeing these guys come at you, and they don't think 2 seconds. I'll never forget we played against it was Zadar. It's a team in Yugoslavia at the time. We went there. They started, I think everybody was 7 feet. And they ran the old rotation, the old circle where you pass the ball and go away. Well, we were running it just inside the three-point line. They ran it 2 feet behind the three-point line. And whoever's man didn't step up behind the three-point line, that guy just stopped and shot it. You're like, wait a minute, did he just shoot it? And they were consistent, and it made no difference if it was a guard, center, or forward, because they're all the same size.
It was a futuristic view at basketball. I mean, it's where everybody can shoot, everybody can handle, and everybody can play every position. It's wild.
Yeah, and you look at them, and the classic thing that my general manager at my first team, he was from the old Yugoslavia. So he said to me, he said, listen, what you need to understand is it doesn't make any difference how big they are. They will hit you. They will make contact, and you might get a dirty shot every now and then. So knowing that, the first guy that runs over to you, give him a little present. And once he knows that, and it's not about being mean or nasty. Once he knows that you don't mind contact, you're not the one that he wants to run into. He wants to find somebody that doesn't like it. So you let him know you bump into him and turn around, you're smiling. He's like, I don't want to know. Something's wrong with him. I'll go to the next guy. They're all physical. They all like to make contact, so get used to it. So when I look at the NBA now and I see all these players come from Europe, I'm like, I knew they were coming. I knew they were coming. I spent 15 years playing against them, and when I was playing against them, I was like, holy crap, these guys are a pain in my butt, because now I actually have to step out and play the three-point shot. And then when the ball is swung to the opposite side, I have to cover more distance to get back and protect the middle, because these guys, it's where the old fashioned big guys, we could play from post to maybe the foul line, high post, and then the other side of the post, left and right. And I could read 7 feet 6 inches, so I could cover that pretty good just by moving my feet a little bit. I went to Europe and I had to make a conscious effort of moving my feet, because if you didn't, it's like if your man drops a couple threes, it messes up the whole rotation. So, get out there. Rudy Hackett taught me something very important. When I played with Rudy Hackett for 2 years, it was fantastic because he recruited me for Syracuse, and I got to play with him. And Rudy told me something. He said, I played with him for 2 years. We had a great time. He showed me something. He said he would watch a game, and whichever side the ball was passed in, that the team was comfortable passing the ball. Like, they'll bring the ball, the point guard brings the ball to the floor, and he likes to catch it, and he likes to pass it, whatever is either to the right side or the left side. Wherever that first pass went to, that's the man that Rudy would take. And when he threw that first, he tried to get a hand on the first two passes that the point guard threw. He said, I don't care if I got to dive 10 feet to get a hand on it, because I want that guy to start the plays on the weak side. And that way, he said, I can take a break for the rest of the game. I'm like, son of a gun. He did it all the time. He forced the other team into doing these things. And that's that European mentality. He got over there. He figured that out. He got them. He always, so teams would start after like 2 minutes. You can't start your play where you want to start it, where you've been starting it for the whole season, because Rudy Hackett got a hand on 2 of 3 passes. So that guy's going,
in the way.
I'm not throwing it over there. I'm throwing it over here. So now they're playing on their weak. They're playing on the side that's not their strong side. Then we can be more aggressive. We can be more everything. So just smart things like that are things that are taught between the young guys over there, because all Europeans are tall and skinny, and you got to learn how to use what you bring to the table.
Yeah, and you say tall and skinny. Reportedly, Marek Dolezaj has been putting on weight during the pandemic, which is I think a welcome sign to a lot of Syracuse fans. All it took was having to sit at home for a couple of months and not go work out. But it's pretty funny to watch, and it's pretty interesting. Like I'm pretty curious what his role is going to be on the team this year, because could he slide into that main playmaker role that like an Elijah Hughes was in last year? Yeah, he might be able to. I mean, it'll certainly look different than it did with Elijah Hughes, but like Marek Dolezaj might be able to take over that featured player role.
Yeah, he can. The thing about Marek is he's talented enough to play whatever Coach Boeheim envisions for him, and he'll do it well. Say he's not that feature player to handle the ball all the time, but in moments of need, you can step up. I had a teammate, Pace Manning, he's a 6'8" point guard, played at Utah, and 3 times during a game, he would literally step in the passing lane and steal a ball and go down and get a layup. He would do it 3 times a game. He would pretend like he got caught behind a pick. This is on defense, so we're playing great defense, and he'd run into the pick and he'd just stop and he'd follow the guy out. He'd do it the whole first half. 3 minutes left in the first half. He would run to that pick, and instead of running into it, he would just slide this way, turn, and they would throw the ball right to him. He'd score. So all of this to say, when you're smart like that, you can figure those things out, and he's got the tools that he can be that guy. He can be the guy, instead of pushing the ball up the court, he can be that guy that follows the play up, Tyler Lydon-esque, and catch that ball and drop the 3. And he's also capable of catching that ball, showing the 3. When they come at him, go to the left, go to the right, spin move back to the middle. And he's capable of finding somebody else cutting or finishing at the basket. He's got a bunch of tricks in his bag of tricks. I'm excited, and he's a great kid.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, it's going to sound kind of funny because, I don't know that a lot of people would probably assume this, but he's been one of my favorite players to watch in a Syracuse uniform in the time that I, have been up in Syracuse. It's been fun to see him develop and kind of grow into a different player, because you could tell so early that there was something there. And it just had to kind of get unlocked, and you saw it step by step. He's been one of my favorite players to watch.
I remember having this conversation with Wendell Alexis. Wendell Alexis and I talk about him all the time. We played against each other in Italy for 4 or 5 years. Raphael Edison played there, then Rudy Hackett, then Leo Rautins played there. There's a lot of Syracuse players that played there. And I remember talking to him, and we're going into the tournament. I think it was his freshman year. And we said, we have the only Euro that doesn't play like a Euro. And then the next game, he was playing against one of his national team teammates. And he was like, and he comes down, catches the ball, steps out, drops a 3. We're like, he's a Euro again. He remembered what he's supposed to do. So, and you think about these kids come here, and they're going to college in a language that's their second language. They're on the floor. They're dealing with different situations that is not their first language. So there's a lot of stuff that you got to become accustomed to before you can just start to. I always say the game of basketball is like looking down a tube. If you play it well and you're intelligent, you can make it. You can play with just looking down this tube. But the more comfortable you get, you start seeing the whole floor. You start running the floor. You start getting relaxed. And you start seeing the things that he's capable of doing. And that's the beauty, I think, of kids staying in school 2 and 3 years. They're able to develop into people that we would have never thought about, but you got glimpses of. And it's so exciting to understand that this is that same little kid and he's humble. So I like humble, and I like him when he just explodes and does something. Like he jumped out in front of Zion Williams and got ran over. He was like, I do it 2 or 3 more times. I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Right.
I like that as a player.
It's funny you mentioned, and this will be kind of my last little Marek thing. You mentioned the adjustment, going to school in a second language, the whole deal. And I remember that pretty early in his freshman year, somebody asked Coach Boeheim about it. And this isn't a direct quote, but it's pretty close. Somebody asked him about Marek's adjustment, and Jim Boeheim said something close to, well, he's dating a blonde cheerleader, so I think he's doing all right.
Way to go, Coach.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. That was Marek's adjustment period.
Yeah, he got that. They'll get you there. They'll get you there in a hurry. You get.
No doubt.
He is. I tell you, he's one of my favorites. I'm looking forward to see how he plays. I mean, I'm kind of chafing at the bit because this time last year I was able to spend a couple of weeks with the team in Italy,
right.
And just to understand how they play together, how they understood one another, how they fit in, and just to see their characters grow at that particular time in the first year. I would love to be there watching these guys go through their first practices because that's really what solidifies. It's like a hierarchy. Guys are right out. What's going on out there right now is everybody's jockeying for a position, jockeying to show coach that they have the capability of playing more minutes. There's only so many minutes, so whoever can hang in there the longest will get some of those minutes. But the other guys, hey, it's a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. They got to stay after and keep going.
I don't know if I asked you this. I don't know if I asked you this somehow over the last year. Were you just like the tour guide? Like what was happening in Italy? Were you just like leading the orange delegation over there?
Well, it kind of happened like this. It was I found out that Syracuse University was going to Italy, and I think it was during the season, and I sent a text to Julie. I was like, "They're going to Italy." I'm so traumatized. No one told me. And then about a week later, Coach Boeheim saw my good friend Jim Glavin out at some place, and he said, "Yeah, we're trying to see if we can get Rosey to come along with us because, well, he knew the right person to talk to." And as it worked out, I went over there. It was there's a group of people that followed the team over there. So it was good to spend time with them and talk about just the things that they were interested in finding out, the food or the places that I'd been, and my welcome to the whole thing. And Pete, don't take this badly, but I get over there, we get to Venice, and before they're going to the game, and they leave me behind. They said, okay, we're gonna leave at a quarter to 4. No, they said we're gonna leave at 4:00, and then they changed their mind. They left at a quarter to 4, and evidently when they changed their mind, I was in the shower. I got out the shower. I come down at 4:00, and I see the boat taking off, and I was like, huh. And then Pete was like, "Oh, Rosey, I'm so sorry." And I said, "Pete, listen, had you left me in Moscow, I would have been worried. But you left me in Italy." I just went and ran into.
There are worse places to be stranded than in Venice. Like that's not a bad place to be stuck.
And then right there when I'm coming up, I run into Mike Fallon, his wife and his daughter are there, and they're like, "Oh, we're about to go over the game too. You can come with us." I was like, "I'd rather go with you guys anyway." Put my arm around everybody, and off we went.
There you go. That must have been a whole lot of fun. Certainly a fun
Absolutely
trip,
amazing.
Over there. All right, Rosey, let's put a wraps on it for this week. We'll come back next week.
All
We
right.
got plenty to talk about, I'm sure, as we get closer to normal in sports and in the world. And so it'll be a whole lot of fun. Enjoyed it as always. We'll do it again soon.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Seth. Take care now.
Thanks for joining us today here on Rosey and Goldy.
Take care. Bye.